here. Coming off the NBA
right
draft last night, we are fired up to go. Shams can't get phone service. I don't know what the hell is going on around here. Schefty, you got any message for our new friend here?
Yep, free agency in the NBA starts June 30th, and I wanted to officially welcome Shams to his first week of free agency at the Worldwide Leader and express my condolences. You have no idea what you're in for when you've got calls from shows and radio coming in at all hours of the night. I know you don't sleep much as it is, but that week, as you know, you will sleep less, and I pity you.
You know what? Phone lines are open. We're ready. We're ready for business.
That's exactly right. And we are all loaded up today. Markieff is ready to go today on the hoops. Dominique ready with some football today. And we have a bunch of special guests coming this morning as well. So let's get rolling. Only one place to start because yesterday was Flag Day, and we spell it with 2 G's. It was a coronation we knew was coming. The Mavericks making Duke's Cooper Flagg the #1 overall pick in the draft 6 weeks after winning the lottery. Flagg will not turn 19 until December. He joins a Dallas team that has aspirations of contending immediately in the West on the heels of an injury-ravaged season that ended with elimination in the final play-in game. So, Michael Wilbon, just how good are these Mavericks?
But they got the assets, the human resources to be really, really good. And if all those guys are healthy in the lineup, and if Flagg is the third best player on that team, they can look at Oklahoma City and say, let's go drop the gloves now.
Okay, so he's talking big about this team, so let us dive directly into that. Markieff, when Kyrie Irving comes back healthy and Cooper Flagg gets himself situated in the middle of all of that, you were on the Mavericks for the first half of last season. Is this a team that could make a deep NBA playoffs run next year?
I think so. Obviously, I don't want to put too much into Cooper Flagg because he doesn't really have to even play extremely well for them to get there. They have other pieces like P.J. Washington, like Najee Marshall. So I don't think so. But if he comes and be exceptional like he is, for sure they have. You have to wait and see what it looks like when Kyrie comes back because you don't know if that's going to be January, February. That's the most important thing I would say about this thing is just the when does Kyrie come back? Is he extremely healthy, and how do they look if they are healthy?
Absolutely. I mean, look, the bottom line, Shams, look, back in February when you stopped the world by reporting that trade, I mean, I can't remember a fan base, a franchise that felt at a lower point than the Dallas Mavericks did in that moment. And now here we are, and Michael Wilbon, one of the most credible people in the entire industry, is talking title. What have they built here, and how did this happen?
Whatever you want to say about the Luka Doncic trade, Nico Harrison has built arguably the best front line in the NBA. You think about Anthony Davis, now Cooper Flagg, Derek Lively II. They just extended Daniel Gafford on a new 3-year, almost $60 million deal. The biggest key, though, of this season is going to be Kyrie Irving, the return to health that he's going to have. If he was healthy right now, we'd probably be talking about this team with the Thunder competing for a championship 1,000%. But that uncertainty on him, and I'm told the Mavericks are not going to be rushing him back. He personally is hopeful in targeting that January, February period. But that extension that he signed, Greeny, 3 years, 119, what it does is give Dallas the ability to use their taxpayer mid-level exception of just over $5 million. And they're going to use that to go find a stopgap type of point guard, a D'Angelo Russell, Chris Paul, Malcolm Brogdon. Those are the 3 names I'm told that are in play there potentially that they're going to have interest in. Who's that player going to be? What's the impact?
So they're not done. Talk to me about these Mavericks.
Yeah, I mean, that's the high priority because we don't know when Kyrie Irving's going to be back and where are they in the standings when he does come back. And it's similar where when Golden State made the Jimmy Butler trade. We thought that Warriors team was floundering. Basically, when Kyrie comes back, they're making a trade without giving up anybody, and that's going to be the most important thing. But the next week, how they find a temporary replacement for Kyrie Irving is the first order of business in Dallas.
So look, that is a trade that is going to be remembered, and we are going to be tracking the progress of Luka's Lakers versus the Mavericks. And so let's take a look at that. Cindy, A15, if you would please, because ESPN Bet is not buying into Dallas in the same way that Michael Wilbon is. They currently have the Mavericks as the 9th best odds to win the Western Conference. Only one team in the last 40 years, by the way, played in the finals the year after selecting number one. That was Cleveland in 2015. That shouldn't even really count. They drafted number one, traded that to get Kevin Love. They signed LeBron James. They completely remade their team. So the question is, as someone who was on both of these teams last year, Markieff, right now, if I was telling you either the Mavericks or the Lakers next year are going to wind up winning the West, which team would you tell me it's going to be?
I would say the Lakers, Greeny. Obviously I finished with them, but going into the playoffs, we had a lot of momentum, right? And like I said before, everybody was saying the Lakers was going to win the championship last year. I mean, let's not act like we don't remember that. So I would say with the Lakers because obviously they start their whole team off with everybody. Kyrie's not going to be healthy for majority of the season for Dallas. So I would say the Lakers, they add a big man, add another wing defender, keep their core pieces together. I think they're in prime position to make a run.
What move, Shams, is still sitting out there for the Lakers to make?
It's clear their biggest need is at center. Rob Pelinka has spoken about it ad nauseum that they need to find that. Will that be in the draft? Will that be in free agency? 1,000%, that's the big question. The other thing is the Dorian Finney-Smith of it all. He's got a player option. Does he opt in? Does he find another suitor elsewhere in free agency? So figuring out his free agency, but then also the biggest thing there is the center. And there's names like Brook Lopez, Clint Capella, Al Horford out there in free agency. Will it be that route or will it be the trade route? That's what everyone in LA, everyone in the league is waiting on.
Bobby, what's the fit as far as you're concerned?
Well, it has to be center here. And I think when you look at the conversation between Dallas and the Lakers right now, you kind of like where Dallas is because the unknown of where the Lakers could be here. They've got a ton of expiring contracts, $60 million in expiring contract. They've got one first-round pick. Rob Pelinka showed his hand at the trade deadline. He showed what he was willing to trade in a pick swap, an unprotected first. Mark Williams, who was traded last night to Phoenix from Charlotte, they have the assets to go out and try to get a center, but it's the question is who's that player going to be?
But by the way, one more thing on the Mavericks quickly. I'm not going to play the sound in the interest of time, but Nico Harrison was asked about Jason Kidd again, and he just sort of said, are we still talking about this? I'm asking you, are we still talking about this?
Jason Kidd is going nowhere.
Perfect. So we're not still talking about
I would say we would be. I would be highly concerned if I didn't see Jason Kidd sitting next to Nico Harrison last night when Cooper Flagg was drafted. And he
Back to you.
He was clapping his hands.
Okay. He was. Fair enough.
Jason Kidd was doing interviews all day about Cooper Flagg and his fit.
So all is well. Okay, good. So now we're feeling pretty good about things. Excellent. So that's where they all sit. Now let's run the floor. Shams, it was an exciting night last night. We got round 2 coming today and then free agency. We're going to dive more deeply into these a little later, but give me quick treetops here. Are the Celtics done dealing? We were watching Jaylen Brown all day yesterday.
Never say never. Most of their heavy lifting is done. They got out of the second apron, shed $180 million. The calls, the interest definitely is certainly still coming in for Jaylen Brown and Derek White. There's a couple other players, Sam Hauser, Anthony Simons, that at minimum, if they do want to continue to shed even more out of the first apron, out of the luxury tax, they could. There's heavy interest in those two guys, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, but a very, very high price threshold if anyone wants them.
All right, we're going to go more deeply into that as we continue. And this, Milwaukee, Giannis' future sort of hovers out there. What should we be thinking?
A lot of observing, and he's been there for 12 years, so there's going to be that equity given to the Bucks. See what they do during the draft week, free agency week. How much can they improve this team in their moves? He said it. He wants to compete for a championship. Can the Bucks make those championship moves? His future, I've said it for the last few weeks, it won't be tied to the draft. It won't be tied to free agency. If there is a resolution on Giannis and Antetokounmpo, it could be later in the summer.
Okay, and then finally, the Warriors and Jonathan Kuminga, another team, pardon me, thinking deep playoff run thoughts out west. What's the latest with Kuminga?
The Miami Heat are going to emerge as an expected suitor for Kuminga in restricted free agency. And so we'll see what else the market bears for him. The Warriors are comfortable bringing him back as well. They're open-minded about signing trades. We've seen him speak openly about the fact that he wants to be in a bigger role. Is that role out there for him somewhere else? But the Heat, who missed out on Kevin Durant, look for them to be a potential suitor for Jonathan Kuminga.
Okay, so that's the latest around the league. A few surprises, a lot of drama along the way in round 1 of the NBA draft last night. Round 2 comes up tonight. Lots of burning stories around the NBA, and so Shams is here with some of the answers. Let's dive a little more deeply than we had the chance to before. We spent a lot of the day yesterday talking about the Celtics continuing to shed salary, maybe even parting with Jaylen Brown or Derek White? What can you tell us?
So, Greeny, let's break this down. When the offseason started, when the Celtics lost in the second round, they were looking at a $500 million level salary cap situation for next season with the taxes. So they were open-minded. You have to be open-minded when you're in that position. So Jaylen Brown, Derek White, your high earners. You have Kristaps Porzingis. You have Drew Holiday. They were able to shed Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, $180 million, get out of the second apron. But still, are you a first apron team? Are you a luxury tax team? With the uncertainty of Jason Tatum returning next season, they're getting a ton of calls on both Jaylen Brown and Derek White. Of course, the preference is to not trade them. They're key cogs of a championship team. But if you're the Celtics, you have to at least listen. They're listening. They have a high price threshold on both of those players. I'm told it would have to take an offer that blows them out of the water for them to consider moving either of those players. We'll see if any of those offers come.
Right.
They've done their job so far this week. They're going to continue to get calls and continue to monitor calls.
So the first round has come and gone. In my mind, I thought, let's just deal with Jaylen Brown because he's a superstar that everyone watching knows and knows well and has a very high price tag as well. I was thinking, well, if you're going to trade for him, then the way you're going to get him is by trading the second pick in the draft or something like that. If you could put your finger on it, how much less likely is a Jaylen Brown trade now based on the fact that the first round has come and gone?
I would probably place it as more unlikely than likely just based on what I've heard their asking price is for him.
Yeah.
So unless that asking price is diminishing, like they would be asking for a lot for Jaylen Brown.
So, Bobby, let's sort of do the team building piece of this. If you're the Celtics, there's the money, right? And as Wendy said yesterday, like second apron, first apron, luxury tax, fans don't want to hear about that, even though it's actually what is governing all the decisions that are being made in the sport. But from a team building standpoint, it looks like you have two options. You have try and keep that part of your core together, wait out what might be a challenging season, and try and win it again when Tatum comes back, or tear it down to the studs and then build around Tatum sort of anew next year. Is those are the options they're looking at?
Yeah, and I would avoid tearing it down to the studs here because it comes back to Jason Tatum is going to come back from this injury, and you're going to need Jaylen Brown and Derek White to be competitive in what other moves they do in free agency potentially next year. Maybe they get a lottery pick. Maybe they're Dallas next year and they potentially could get a pick. And when you have two high-level players like that, there's no guarantee you're going to be able to go out and get them again. So they have two players like that. Listen, I would say there's probably a handful of players that are untouchable. We thought Luka wasn't untouchable, and he gets traded.
Right.
So there's a handful. You listen to calls. If something blows you away, you figure out if that's best with you. But for me, I'm keeping both guys, and then I'm going to kind of trim around the edges and focus on 2026-27.
Keith, do you believe we will see Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown together in the NBA Finals again in the future?
I definitely think so. I mean, they went to 5 Eastern Conference championships together. I mean, you don't, like I said before, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown will be together next year. This is just a fill-out year. They did what they said they was going to do. They shedded the salary caps, got under the first apron. Now it's just about bringing players together, bringing players in that can fit with this team next year. Jaylen Brown will be the focal point. He'll have a chance to win MVP, to win Most Improved, but all this is building up for them to make a title run in 2026.
Okay, so we'll put the Celtics to the side for a minute. In this sort of wide open Eastern Conference, we touched briefly on the Bucks of it all, the Giannis of it all. He wants to win a title, understandably so. They were a championship team not long ago. They feel very far from that right now. So what are we looking at with regard to him and his future?
Giannis Antetokounmpo has been in Milwaukee for 12 years, and so I reported during draft, combine, and lottery week that he was open-minded about seeing are there best possible fits outside of Milwaukee, and that is a due diligence process that he has undertaken. Everyone around him has undertaken as well. But again, he's been there for 12 years, so there's a level of equity in seeing what can the Bucks do at the draft, what can they do during free agency, how can they improve the team. He has said on record he wants to compete for a second NBA championship. They've got free agents in Bobby Portis, Brook Lopez, Kevin Porter Jr., and so he's going to remain open-minded. I don't think his future is necessarily tied to this week, to free agency week. It's going to be a process where you see how this team looks into July, well into July potentially, and then ultimately he will see how the Bucks look, how the chess pieces look across the league, and ultimately have some form of a resolution.
So, Bobby, again, team building here. I would be, I could understand looking at it this way. We swung and missed. We tried as hard as we went out. We got Damian Lillard. We tried to give it a go with those two guys. We brought in the coach who's got a championship on his resume. It just didn't happen for a variety of reasons. And now Lillard is going to be hurt, another one of these Achilles injuries. So do you explore the definition of tearing it down to the studs? Trade away Giannis, get everything in the world back for him, and start building from scratch.
For the next month, I'm doing everything possible to add around Giannis, and that's why I think the next month is the most important in franchise history for Milwaukee as far as what they do. The one name Shams didn't mention was Damian Lillard. He's going to be out for a significant time, and Gary Trent Jr. is also a free agent. I think that the problem, if you're not exploring Giannis deals now and you wait until next year, now he's going to be on an expiring contract. He's a year older. The value starts to come down a little bit here. They could basically wipe the slate clean. I understand where John Horst, their general manager, is coming. When you have a top 3 player on your roster, you're doing everything possible to add pieces. But I keep on coming back to dead ends. What are the options going to be? Who in free agency? The non-tax. They have so many free agents that we might get to December and Giannis might say, wait a minute, we can't compete in the Eastern Conference. Now I want out. And now the options maybe get a little bit diminished.
Of what might go through a player like his mind, I'm sure, and Shams touched on it, there's an element of loyalty there. I mean, when they won that title, you could see the love affair between him and the city and everything else. Winning in a small market like that is a special bond. But in your mind, if you were Giannis, what do you think you'd be thinking about your future?
Well, to piggyback off of what Bobby said, they had 7 free agents next year, right? And one thing that people are not talking about is that these teams are now handicapped with the way the salary cap works now. So as a player, knowing that my team can't make these moves and it's literally going to be impossible for us to compete next year with going out and getting free agencies or not having asset, I'm thinking about my future. And I think going forward, players will think more about their future with different teams because of how handicapped these teams will become with the way that the salary cap is working. So if I'm Giannis, I'm looking at my future and saying, can I actually win? And not thinking about being loyal, you know what I mean? Because at this point, the salary cap takes so much out of teams, you almost can't really do anything if you're a player.
What do you think, Shams?
So, Greeny, Doc Rivers, John Horst, that Bucks organization, they've been operating like, listen, Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to be back next season. The loyalty factor is there. But, again, they have all these free agents. They have only 1 first-round draft pick to play with. They have some second-round picks they can play with as well. And what they're lacking is these high-value tradable contracts to really go out there. What John Horst has done time and time again, every time Giannis Antetokounmpo had a decision on his future with an extension, went out and got Jrue Holiday in 2020. Giannis signs an extension. 2023 gets Damian Lillard. Out of nowhere, Giannis signs another extension. This offseason, again, when the future is kind of hanging in the balance, they don't have the necessary tools because they have gone all in multiple times. So you have to give that organization a lot of credit. Will the loyalty factor, listen, if you're staying this offseason for Giannis Antetokounmpo, you're looking at yourself staying for the rest of your career. If you're going to withstand this, you're staying.
It's fascinating. That's why Bobby just said might be the most important time in their franchise history all the way back to the Alcindor days.